بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى صحبه وآله أجمعين. Let's talk about the Uthmanis, or in Arabic Al-Uthmaniyun. In English the Ottomans, the O-T, O-double-T, the Al-Uthmaniyun. Al-Uthmaniyun, we know originally they are Turkish that came from Central Asia and formed one of the biggest Islamic empire in the history of Islam. Not only that, the Ottomanis were the only third Islamic power to expand. The first Islamic power to expand was the Khulafa al-Rashidin from the year 11 Hijri till the year 41 Hijri, and then the Umayyads from year 41 Hijri to year 132 Hijri, and then for the next 500 years when the Abbasid rules, there was no expansion. We must admit there was expansion during that time, but not due to Osmanis, again due to the Umayyads, because the Umayyad ruled Spain. So the first two periods of Islamic expansion was during the Khulafa al-Rashidin, then the Umayyads, both in the east and in the west, and then no more expansion till the Ottomans came in the year 1299 till the Khilafat ended 1924 in the Christian era. It's a very exciting and very important period of Muslim life. It's still affects us till today because we are continuation of that Khilafah now, only finished 100 years ago. So probably we need more than one session for it. We'll see how it goes. Let's start. I've got a short video that shows how the Ottomani empire started and expanded, and I'll explain it while we're going along, and then we will concentrate on one or two very, very important events in the Islamic history. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's start here. Yeah. Come here. We'll share, just be patient. Right, if we start from here, from the beginning now, again, yeah, okay. Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sure.
I'll start commenting just in a few seconds. Just. This is where it started. That a man called Ertuğrul, a Turkish, not from the Seljuk. We know the Turkish had many tribes. We don't know what was his tribe was called, but a man called Ertuğrul came with a few hundred.
The tribe is called, what is it? Kai.
Qaid.
Yeah.
Kai.
Kai.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't get it, but anyway, so there were a few hundred families. They were moving away due to the persecution of Genghis Khan and the Mughals, moving from Eastern Asia or Central Asia towards the West. This area here, which is Turkey now, originally, before Islam, it was all part of the Eastern Roman Empire. That they had another name, the Byzantines. And its capital was in Constantinople. All of this area. When the Turkish started taking part of it. And we remember that Malaskur, that Alp Arslan defeated them, and they took the Roman emperor as a hostage, and they released him for £1 million of their currency. So but still it was joint. The Turkish was also taking part of it, but still most of it was still under the Romans. This Roman emperor Constantine, he named it after himself. His name was Constantine. When he came to this town, it was called, I don't know what was it called, but it was ruined old town. He built it up and he named it after himself, Constantinople. In his language, Constantine, the city of Constantine. That was 350 AD. Coming to this Artogrol, he was traveling with his family here, with his few families. When he arrived at this area here, he found there was a war or a battle between two sides. Looking at them, didn't take them long to realize it was Muslims versus Christians. Without hesitations, they joined the Muslims. There were other Turkish Seljuks. They joined them, and because of them, they beat the Christians, which were the Byzantines, the Eastern Romans. The Turkish leader at the time, I forgot his name, he was very happy. And then he realized that they were cousins. They spoke the same language. He gave Artogrol a small town to live in it, right, with his people. Then Artogrol, he expanded a little bit and formed a small entity for themselves. He was expanding towards the west, towards the Romans, not to the east where there's the Muslims. He died in 1281 and his son Uthman took over. From now on, we will see that those great Muslim or Ottoman leaders, everyone would almost double the size of the area that his father left for him. It's never happened in history before. Let's go a bit further now. That's 1326. Look what happened 1326 at Uthman, how much he expanded. Right. In 1329, Uthman beat the Romans, and he took from them Borsa, a major city in their empire.
Yes.
Then he expanded, look, he right, north, west. His son is called Organ. Organ, look how much again expanded. Or every one of them doubled the area. And this Organ, for the first time, he crossed into Europe. This is, if you stop here, there's a sea here. This is a sea. This sea, this is the Black Sea. This is the Sea of Marmara. This is the Bosphorus. So all this to the left is Europe and to the right is Asia. So 1329, the Ottoman spread into Europe. In 1371, they have their first fight with the Serbs and they beat them, and they are now in Serbia. 1385, again, they moved into Kosovo and more to the west. Okay. Right. Other than moving to the west as well, they are moving to the north. All this now Eastern Europe, which is Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary. This is now new. Now, what happened that the Turkish entity or state in Turkey itself, which is called Asia Minor at the time, it wasn't called Turkey, they declined and they start having internal wars. So there wasn't a unified state on the right in Turkey. So they started now expanding both west and east. They couldn't leave the east with the fighting each other, and then that would have affected them. So they started taking now over in Asia as well as in Europe at the same time. You see the same leader like this Bayezid, He was going right everywhere. I don't know how he managed. Was moving hundreds of miles within a few years and occupying them. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't a temporary occupation. It lasted for hundreds of years. Now they've taken everything, as you can see here, almost 90% of Turkey, half of Eastern Europe, not Europe, half of Eastern Europe, because if you go from here straight line up to Russia, then that's all of Eastern Europe, right? But they have not taken Istanbul here, this small town here. They have not taken it. They've tried, they couldn't take it so far. In 1451, a sultan of theirs called Murad al-Thani died. His son, Muhammad al-Thani, took over. He was 21 years old. Took over, and his plan now is to conquer Constantinople. He had a sheikh called Ag Shamsuddin, and some people say he was an Arab because Muhammad Thani knew Arabic very well, as well as Persian, Greek, Turkish, and knew 5 languages: Arabic, Persian, Turkish, Greek. I don't know what's the 5th language. And so his sheikh said, reminded him of a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that's when we're talking here about 850 Hijri, 850 years before, he said to his Sahaba, to the Muslims, you will conquer Constantinople. لتغزون القسطنطينية in Arabic. You will conquer Constantinople. فلنعم الجيش ذلك الجيش ولنعم الأمير أميرها. What a good army is that army. What a good leader the leader will be. Now that hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, it means whoever falls into that category will go to heaven. Allah, the Prophet, Allah and his messenger don't praise those who will go to hell. So it's a certificate to go to heaven, really, and to be remembered till the day of judgment and after, really, that the Prophet praised. See, the Prophet doesn't praise anyone in particular, but if he praises someone, see, the believers are praised by Allah as his messengers. The good people are praised, but not in particular, like Allah, the Prophet, like Allah praised all his messengers, and then praised the righteous people in general, right? And the Prophet praised the good people, and then praised this will go to Jannah, this will go to Jannah, this, and on the opposite, this will go to heaven, to hell. So because of this hadith, many Muslim leaders in the past, the Prophet did not give dates or nationality. He said, you will. And when the Prophet ﷺ, or even before that, when Allah addressed the Muslims or his messengers, there's no mention of nationality. Because in Allah's sight, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ, the believers are brothers. So when Allah addressed the Muslims, he addressed them as a one entity called Muslims, the nation of Islam. So the Prophet said, you will. He's talking to his Sahaba, that he meant you, the Muslims. The first one to try to conquer Constantinople was Muawiyah. He sent his son, although he became bad after Yazid, and he besieged it for 7 months, and he couldn't do it. He tried again, he couldn't. Twice in Muawiyah's time, they couldn't. Then till the year 96 Hijri, Al-Walid ibn Abd al-Malik tried again, sent an army, and they failed. So his brother Sulaiman again failed to do it. And then, I mean, they had big army, but they couldn't do it. Just, it's not written that they'll do it. Then nobody attempted till the Ottomans came, and now the hadith people were spreading the hadith again. We are around it. We are a great empire, but this town is a problem for us. And this is the hadith. And this sheikh of Sheikh Aq Shamsuddin said to Muhammad, Sultan Muhammad, 21 years old, you are meant to be that man. And he convinced him. So this 21 years old said, we will go for Istanbul, or Constantinople, it was called. Now, let's see how he managed that. We will stop share and we start something different now. Bismillah. Here. Okay. Yes, I've done some PowerPoint. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make it clearer now. Just give me a second. Slideshow view. Slideshow. Yeah, can you see this? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now just give me a second. This is, I think, Uthman. And this is I don't know who this. This is another noise. Okay. Okay. Give me a second. Let me clear it. Oops.
I think you said Orhan at the top of the slide.
Yeah, just a second. Just a second. Okay. Yes. Slideshow. Play from current. Let me just. No, I'm not managing well. Right, let me go from here. Right, okay, slide from current. Right, this is what Constantinople looked like at the time before the Muslim conquered it. At the time, very modern, clean, big city, the center of not only the Eastern Roman Empire, but the center of the Eastern Roman, the Eastern Christian church. Right, this church, they've got their own church, which is different than the church of the Pope. So the Muslim now decided to conquer it. It was surrounded by walls. If any one of you have been to Istanbul, you'll see these really big walls there, very thick walls. That's why many armies in the past, they couldn't penetrate those walls. This again, you could see how horrible they are. And these walls are 2 layers, not only 1 layer. Even if you breach the first wall, you still have problem breaching the second wall. This is Muhammad al-Fatih advancing with a gun. What happened in his time, Muhammad al-Fatih, a European, Eastern European, I think from Hungary, approached him and he said, I have invented a very big field gun that use gunpowder. And I've offered my invention to many European kings. They wouldn't pay me the right money. Muhammad al-Fatih said, whatever you want. He gave him, I don't know how much he asked for. He gave him whatever he wanted. And they built field guns. And they've tried it. And they built many of them, something like 50 or 60. But one of them in particular called the Royal Gun, which was the biggest of all of them. They only managed to do one of them. And they've tried them. They can fire steel balls for about half a kilometer away. And the Royal one can fire it up to 1 kilometer away, right? So Muhammad Fatih now went, this is Constantinople, what looks like. It's surrounded by sea from 3 sides, from the north, from the east, and from the south. And it has the walls throughout, from all the directions. There are walls. If you remember from what we saw earlier, that the Ottoman has occupied all this area, north, west, south, all of it, except this town. So where the town was getting the contact with the Christians from the sea, either from the Russians and the Northern Europeans from the Black Sea, or from the south, from the Europeans like Italy and France. They were sending supplies and to the city here. So Muhammad al-Fatih, that area here, where you see this red arrow here, that area was under his. So what he did, he built here a very big and a huge castle, not city, a castle. He himself, his soldiers, his scholars, everybody participated in the physical building of it. So he finished it within 3.5 months. Why he built the castle here? He built the castle here to prevent any supplies or help coming from the north through the sea. Right? Okay. This is the castle called Romli Hisar, the Hisar of Romli. Romli is the area. This is the castle that Muhammad Fatih built. All that in 3.5 or 4 months. Inside it, we told you that they had many guns, right? They convinced many guns, smaller guns. They had many of these, but the royal gun, they only had one of them. That's all in Romli Castle. Why that? That's to hit any ship that will come towards the to help Constantinople. But there was no ships in that area for the Ottomans. They couldn't. We'll see why. Why is that? Some of the picture for it. This is the guns again. They used other cement or stone or metal projectiles. This is the royal gun. Again, now this is what the city looks like here, right? Okay, at the time, and this here, this is up. This is here. This is the walls of the city, if you can see them, right? Surrounded by walls from everywhere, and so thick walls that many people could not conquer them before. Now, the Ottoman ships, they had many of them, hundreds of them. They were in this area or up to the north this way, but they could not enter here. This is called the Golden Horn. They could not enter here at all. Why is that? First of all, what the Romans did, they laid a chain, heavy steel chain, between one end of here to the other end. And they had pulleys that they could lower it when the friendly ships come, and when enemy ships come, they will pull it up. And around here on the other side of the sea, they had a very strong, powerful, what you call it, military base to protect it. This side of the wall was the weakest side of the wall, because they knew it is friendly. There's nobody can come to them this way, while the other walls were very powerful. Muhammad Fatih brought his army, some say 100,000, some say 250,000, but most accounts says 250,000 men, and surrounded the city in the year 453. I think 6th of July. They besieged the city here from all these three directions. They didn't have enough ships to attack it from this side, but they knew this was a very weak place here. And they were thinking of sending their ships. They've tried a few times. Every time they go, the chain is lifted up, and the ships could not make it. This is the white one is the Muslim ship, and this is the Christian ships there. Then Muhammad Fatih thought of something that nobody has ever thought before, or even after. He said, we will bring our ships to this side of the Golden Horn. It was his idea. He said, we will transport the ships overland and bring them here, which is an impossible task. This land here is first not flat. It is a hill with the minimum height there is 250 feet, some 70, 80 meters high. And it's not good for ships. It's not good for people. He gave orders to prepare, and he got the plan, made the plan as well. He was a military commander, first-class military commander. Although he was a poet, he was an author, he was good with science, engineering, but anyway, he was brought up to be great military leader. What he did, they prepared, of course, secretly, a lot of, that area was under their control, this area here. They prepared a lot of wooden planks, and they covered them with thick layer of fat, animal fat, or industrial fat, whatever they had. And they had hundreds of thousands. I told you they had 250,000 soldiers, thousands of people laying the ground, making a road-like area here from here to there, and they had thousands of men as well as oxes pulling the ships, 70 ships overnight from this side to this side. When the Romans woke up one day, they were horrified. They didn't know that when they come. They say how the ships could jump the chain. They thought it was the work of jinn. It really brought down the morals down of the Romans. The Muslims were for about 30, 40 days before that bombarding the city non-stop. Those guns that they had were primitive guns. Every time you fire, you have to wait 2.5 hours before it cools down. So they were not firing. During that time, the Romans were used to, within 2.5 hours, to rebuild what has been destroyed from the wall. So it was a bit frustrating for the Muslims, but at the same time, it was a bit frightening for the Christians inside. They saw these people determination, plus the shouts of Allahu Akbar, it demoralizes all the kafirs, plus the guns non-stop, day and night. I mean, they didn't sleep, those Turkish. There's always had shifts that firing. Okay, every gun wait 2.5 hours, but then firing, again firing. Just imagine 50 guns firing, plus the royal gun firing every 2.5 hours, one huge holes making in the walls. So for 40, 50 days, they were firing non-stop. Muhammad Fatih had a few consultations with his commanders during the time. What shall we do? Because whatever they're destroying in the day, the second day, those Romans are rebuilding again. They've got enough supplies and more the stones there and the bricks, they stays there, some damaged. So now in his consultation, few times his prime minister said, look, we cannot make it. We can't. I mean, we've been bombarding them for 50 days non-stop and we're not getting anywhere. Not only bombarding, a lot of these soldiers were daring and attacking the walls, and they used to pour on them hot water, hot oil, firing at them with arrows, bows and arrows. A lot of them died. Hundreds of them died. I mean, they were full of courage, these people. Not only that, some of the Ottomans made tunnels to the town, and that frightened the hell out of the Romans, because suddenly they see one of them Ottomans coming from underground, but they could hear it now. They knew that they could hear where the noise is coming from. They used to make they used to open the hole for them and pour on it hot water or burning oil. That's again, many Ottomans lost their lives. So in his consultation with his ministers, Muhammad Gata, half of them would say, let's withdraw, we can't do it. But his sheikh was insisting. He used to respect his sheikh a lot. He's the one who taught him since he was young, this Shamsuddin. He said, look, you are the one the Prophet mentioned. Just carry on. You will make it. And Muhammad Fatih was in that opinion as well. Not that he needed encouragement, but it could help that to find somebody. Actually, the army leader was on his side as well. Only the politicians, the ministers who found it hard. But the army leader, his sheikh and him were on one side, we must carry on. And they carried on. And once the ships arrived here now, to the Golden Horn, the people of Constantinople really lost heart. Now, these ships were not ordinary ships as well. They were ships to fight a land war. In other words, they had the guns as well. They put the guns on them. They protected them from missiles of fire, of oil. These ships were made specially to attack the walls of Constantinople. So now the ships are firing. Their guns are them, and those are from this side firing. The Roman king, I forgot his name, the last one. There was negotiation. Look, we'll pay you millions of pounds every year. Leave us alone. Muhammad Fatih insisted, we will conquer the city. And after 56 days, there were a lot of big holes now in the walls. One Ottoman hero called Hassan Tobal took 30 men with him, climbed on the walls and planted the Ottoman flag. Although he was killed immediately by the Romans, they fired at him. But when the Ottomans saw their flag on the walls, they all attacked at one time, and within hours, the city crumbled and surrendered, and Muhammad Fatih entered. Oh yeah, one thing to mention, the night before they attacked, what happened? Something called the Red Moon. The Red Moon is something that happens every few years, that there's an eclipse of the moon when the earth is between the sun and the moon, the moon becomes red. Those Romans, to them, was a bad omen. They said, oh, this is news from God that we're gonna lose, and they give up. This is the type of chain that was laid down in the city. This is Muhammad Fatih entering the city, and a few more photos, right? And when he entered there was, like, of course, like when Muslims conquer, there was no stories of attacking women, of attacking properties. Muhammad Fatih said to his army, my share of this victory is the sea. All the belongings belong to the army. I won't take a penny from it. So whatever the Muslim took, of course, in an orderly order, not in a savage way or destroying or killing innocent. They didn't kill innocent people. I must admit, they've killed the soldiers who were fighting them for 1,000 years before that, fighting the Muslims. Right, in many places in Syria, in Iraq, in Turkey, in Egypt, in North Africa, these Romans, these are the ones that were doing a lot of damage for the past 1,000 years to the Muslims. But they didn't kill any civilians, they didn't burn houses, and they gave peace to the people, not like what they did when the Christians, when they occupied Jerusalem or when they took over in Spain. This is the picture of Muhammad al-Fatih. Right, we finished from Muhammad Fatih. We got another problem now. Anyway, we're going back to my slides. Okay, stop share. Now, Muhammad Fatih lived, he became ruler in 1451 till about 50, for under 30 years. He died at the age of about 50 or 52 years old. The one who took after him is called, what was his son called? Muhammad Fatih's son, called Murad al-Thani. His father called Murad al-Awwal, is Murad al-Thani. And then, yeah. Second. Okay, sorry. Can somebody, okay, let me mute him. Right. Right. So while those Ottomani were expanding in Europe, they had two enemies from the east that were causing problems. There were the Mamluks, who were very good, we said at the beginning, but like every other dynasty, then become corrupt and dissolves. The Mamluks were not giving them trouble, but they were cautious of those Ottomanis. They were in control of Syria and Iraq, if you remember, and parts of Iraq. And then in the year 1499, Iran at the time was a Sunni country, absolutely Sunni country, with only 4 towns, Shia towns in the whole of Iran. A man called Ismail Shah Safawi, he took over while the Ottomans were busy fighting in Europe. He took over the whole of Iran and declared it a Shia country. And whoever doesn't become Shia, to the sword. People say he killed 1 million people in Iran at that time who would not accept to become Shias. By force, within 2-3 years or 10 years, Iran now became a Shia country. And not only that, they attacked now west, going towards the Ottomani Empire, towards Turkey. So they took Iraq again, they killed the Muslim scholars, they desecrated the Muslim scholars' graves of the past, and they moved on now to fight, to take over Turkey itself. At that time, that the Turkish were at Vienna's gates. They were about to take Vienna. That's how far they went. Then they felt that their back is uncovered, and they could lose the whole state. They could lose even Constantinople. So they had to leave Europe and come back and rush and fight the Safavis. The one who fought them is called Salim al-Awwal. He came, that's the year about 1515. They both met, the two armies, the Safawi armies, the Shia army and the Sunni army. They met in the year 1514 in the western of Iran, border of almost Iran and Iraq, in a city called Galdiran. And it was a big war, but the Shia lost badly. And that Safawi, although he was injured, but somebody saved him and smuggled him away. So Salim al-Awwal went to Iran to liberate all of Iran from the Shia. He went to a big city, was in the north of Iran, a big city of Tabriz. He took over, and then he was planning to move to south of Iran, because although the leader has left and they ran away, and he died soon afterwards, he died in 1536. So his army leaders said to him, we cannot go anymore. This Sultan Salim al-Awwal's army leader. He said, we can't go any further. He said, why not? He said, it was getting cold. This is a cold country. We don't have enough supplies. And we are tired. We've been fighting for too long. Because remember, they came from Europe, crossed all thousands, more than 1,000 miles to reach there. They fought, they won. Salim al-Awwal made some calculations. This army leader has many supporters in the army. And he didn't want to risk and challenge him, just in case the army split and then they kill each other. And the Safavis will come back. He agreed with him. They went back to Turkey, and when they arrived in the first city there, he called his army leader and chopped his head off, but lost an opportunity to liberate Iran once and for all from the Safavis. Then the Safavis came back slowly, and came back and took over. The war, the conquest of Istanbul, as one European historian said, that was a greatest feat than the feat of Alexander the Great altogether, because nobody has ever managed to do such thing or even thought of moving ships over sea, over land. This is one of the most famous 5 Muslim wars that happens. We talked about this one this time, about the conquest of Istanbul. The other one we talked about last week, we talked about the Mamluks, and that is the battle.
Mongols.
Yeah,
Ain Jalut.
yeah, Ain Jalut. Well done. This is Ain Jalut. And then the battle that Salah ad-Din did, and that is Hittin, again the Crusades. That's the third one. So Ain Jalut, the conquest of Istanbul, and Hittin. The other two, inshallah, next week we'll talk about them, or the week after, when we finish that with the Ottomans. The other two is Al-Yarmouk, that's between Khalid bin Walid and the Romans. And again, that was a very big battle. 250,000 Romans against 40,000 Muslims. And the fifth one, the Battle of Qadisiyah, in between the Muslims, led by the Prophet's uncle, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and the Persians. So inshallah, we'll do the 2 more wars, and these are the wars that had a turning point in history, because had the Muslim lost it, Islam would not be the same. If the Muslim lost Ain Jalut, then the Mongols would have just taken over whole Islam in north of Africa, and nothing would be left there. And the same with Hittin. If the Muslim didn't do this, then probably Palestine would be Christian forever. And the other two, the Muslim would have never expanded to the east if they didn't take Qadisiyah, and they would not have expanded to the north if they didn't win against the Romans. Right? Now, we said another problem that the Muslims had there is from the Mamluks. The Mamluks, really, they supported somehow they supported the Shias. They didn't join their army, but they wouldn't join Salim al-Awwal fighting them. Right? although they had very cordial relationship with the Shia, but not with the Sunnis. So Salim al-Awwal decided to go and attack them, and he took all of Syria from them, and then his successor took over Egypt and North Africa. We'll stop here today. I've been talking for about 50 minutes. Next week, inshallah, after they took over North Africa and Syria, then the decline of them started. But still, during those times, the first 200 years, they had many great wars. I mean, everyone needs just one session to talk about them with the Christians. I mean, at one time, they had a war where there were 7 Christian countries, even England, Scotland, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Bulgaria, attacking them, and they won it. They've had many great wars with the Europeans, many, about 6, 7 great wars, in addition to many smaller wars. Said one can just go and read about it. And so next week, inshallah, we'll talk about the rest of the Ottoman Empire, their achievement, and then how it declined and it ended. And one day when we finish all this, we'll talk about the other Muslim wars. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.